Alright, so hey everyone, I'm going to show you my EDH deck. So I'm playing a Naya commander, playing this commander, Samut. So I'm gonna go through the rest of the deck real quick, assuming most of you guys know what cards there are. So I'll start off with the lands. Let's see. So for the lands, how I choose to run them is that there's 36 in total. I start with 9 fetches, as you can see here, so I'll put it aside. 9 fetches. Then I run the 3 duels and the 3 shocks. I also used to run the other duels, but I didn't like the fact that they came into play tapped, which was very important, you know, in any type of Voltron deck. You want to have it as much as possible for the land to come and play untapped, and then you maximize your resources. So among the lands, I only run 3 that potentially come into play untapped. Playing in tapped, which are the tap lands here. Then I have 3 forests, 3 plains, 3 mountains. You may notice that I have a snow of each of them is just for priority. I used to run about like 6 basic lands, but my meta runs a lot of land destruction. The ones that let you, search library for basic lands. So I find that having 9 is really useful because it allows you to have that ability to not be completely destroyed by decks that run land destruction. And at the same time, as you're running green, a lot of times you search for the basics anyways. So 9 is like a good balance that I found. Then I have 3 lands to tap for any mana. So people may know Command Tower, Mana Confluence, and City of Brass. And then after that, I have the final 6 lands, which are utility lands. So I run 1 Strip Mine, 1 Cavern of Souls, Yavimaya Hollow, which just puts a lot of pressure on your opponent in terms of they don't want to waste their spells on you because you can just regen it. It's really rare that I actually use the regenerate target creature. Really, really rare, but it sort of, lets them know that you have it so that they're going to try to play around it. Classic Wolf run, really important. I used to run the, what's that land? The Rogue's Passage or something. So that used to really be quite good until I found the fact that you really need that extra damage with Samut most of the time. So every +1 you give her is equivalent to +2 because she has double strike. And the trample lets her get through the annoying things there. I'll explain like the colorless creatures, but we'll get to that later. And finally, these 2 are generally my favorite lands. I recommend everyone to run it, honestly, in any EDH they can. Temple of False God as your 5th land, or even earlier, really useful, taps for 2. Ancient Tomb as well. As long as you're not running like a mono deck, mono-colored land, these are really useful. It gives you that boost that you need. So on to the next section. The next section I categorize as my ramp. Personally, I run 10 ramps. So starting off with crop rotation. So one good thing is that not only is it utility, but sometimes you can also crop rotate into a, what's that called again? The Temple of False God or the Ancient Tomb. So this lets you go faster. And because Samut has haste, there were times whereby I crop rotated into an Ancient Tomb, into a Samut in opponent's end of turn. And that was, one of the more interesting plays that you could catch your opponent by surprise. After that, I run 4 ramps at a 2-mana slot. So there's Ancient Lore, looks for like a forest. The Farseek, which looks for a non-forest. 3 Visits, which looks for forest. And Sakura Tribe Elder, which is generally a better version of Rampant Growth. I mean, if you could run both, you run both. But if you're really tight on slot, like just run this guy. Like, you can't go wrong. So, of course, the 2 trademark cards for green, Cultivate and Kadamas Reach. No explanation needed there. And I also have, finally, to round off at the number 3 slot is Wood Elves. The other option you have would be, I believe, the elf that searches for a basic land. And then the other one, which is 2 green, 1 colorless, they can search for force and put it in the target player. But sometimes in really bad matchups, very bad luck, you don't have that 2 green, 1 colorless to be able to do that. And Wood Elves is 1 green, 2 colorless. It's very useful. It gives you like a dual land of it, obviously. finally I run only 2 at a 4 mana slot because Samut herself, remember, she's at 5. So when you have 5, you want to cast her. There's no reason to run anything higher than a 4 mana cost in that case. So the most efficient ones I'm running would be sort of this like explosive vegetation. So once again, you have 9 basics in here, right? So most of the time, this will fetch you 2. Like it's really rare that will fetch you 1. Like almost never. I haven't ever gone to that situation. And Scout Strike Claim is really good, you know, to get the lands 2 forests into play tapped. And remember, all the lands I run, out of the 36, 33 of them come into play untapped, you know, and then the other 3 remaining, most of the time they come into play untapped as well, unless it's the first land you actually play. So moving on, these are the instances I'm running. Now, some of these may not seem very efficient, and I'll explain as we go along. So I'm running Source to Plowshare, Path to Exile, gets rid of creatures, exiles them. I really like, I prefer exiling as opposed to, you know, sacrifice or destroy, because it gets rid of them permanently. And any creatures that are like, most people run really good creatures, so you don't want them recurring them over and over. Ancient Grudge and Ray of Revelation. I'm not sure how other people feel about this card, but since these 2 cards, but once I put them in, I really like them. I used to run, I believe, Wear and Tear, and the other 2 cards from Urza Legacy that hits 2 artifacts and 2 enchantments. But the problem is that it costs, one costs 2 mana, well, that's fine, and the other costs 3 mana. But it's really redundant in the fact that if you have no targets, it doesn't work, or sometimes you don't have enough mana. And this is the cheapest you can find, you know, it's just 2 mana. And if they counter it or whatever, there's no point because you can just flash it back. Or if you play it and flash it back, you hit twice. So Ancient Grudge, Ray of Revelation, really good. The thing about EDH, or the way I've been playing or experiencing it, is that very often people will say like, well, you know, everyone plays artifacts, it's, you know, super overrated, you need a lot of artifact destruction, but you don't know how many times that you run into situations whereby people play really efficient enchantments. So let's say if you're playing against black, there's Dictate of Erebos, there's that other one, the really expensive card, Grave Pack, you know, this gets rid of it, so really important. Put these aside. All right, then moving on, there is Oblation and Chaos Warp. So I know what some of you may be thinking, like, why would I not be running Beast Within, you know, at green mana? Because once again, my explanation for this is that every single instant I'm going through here right now is tutorable using the Sun Forger, which you'll see later on. So even though Beast Within is really good, I try to make the deck in a way that I play the best cards, but at the same time, there's a bit of leeway, as in if you draw into it, it's good, but if you don't draw into it, it's bad. So I always like things that, you know, gives you multiple ways of finding them. So Oblation, Chaos Warp, you know, they're not as strong as Beast Within, but a lot of times there were some occasions whereby I've Oblationed or Chaos Warped myself out of a bad situation. It's really rare you would use it on yourself. Ideally, you use it on your opponent's troublesome permanents, but, you know, it gives you that flexibility, you know, the same as Source to Plowshare and Path to Exile. Those 2 cards you can target yourself to. You don't do it often, but, you know, the option is there. Then Return to Dust. Once again, I'm not running the Sylvan, I think it's called Sylvan's Grind, no, Sylvan Reclamation. I would run it, however, if I took out my Sun Forger. I'm considering, because I don't get Sun Forger out that often, and when I have it, usually I'm already winning. It doesn't bring me back from a bad situation. If it's in play, it protects your board perfectly because it gives you access to everything I've been holding in my hand so far. But other than that, you know, moving on, I have 2 tutors here. So Enlightened Tutor, it lets you search for an artifact, which usually will be an equipment or an enchantment, which usually would have some sort of protection for like permanents on the field. So I run a lot of ETB creatures, and because of that, I tend to consider ETB creatures like, you know, sorceries that leave bodies behind. Like, that's how I like to sort of see them. And because, you know, we're playing Voltron, you know, with Samut, you don't really need your creatures there to attack. It's more just like to block or whatnot. So ETB creatures are really important. And Montgomery's Call, put them directly into your hand. really important. Board with Charm. The only time you would really effectively use it is to protect your permanence. So very often people like to raft the board. Once in a while you play against people who I don't know have like play Ruination. I'm not sure if that's exactly what the card's name is called, but destroys all lands in play, and this protects all your lands. Once again, if your meta doesn't play land destruction, good for you. You don't really need it. This is protecting against sacrifice, but board wipes could be very annoying, and this is something that can deal with it. And finally, the white counter spell, the really effective one. Some people will run Mana Tithe for laughs, but Lapse of Certainty, once again, really important. You won't use this to counter everything per se, but you'll use it in a situation whereby you absolutely have to stop someone from winning or completely annihilating you. In a way, it sort of buys you a turn from whatever it is that you're stopping. Of course, if they could draw it off the top of the library and replay it, there's nothing you can do about it. But this is one of the options that you can run if you want to have a counterspell outside of blue. This is one of the better ones, so to speak.